Hello, my sweet summer children. I'm back with the juice to get you through the long nights until Winds of Winter or House of the Dragon. By the way, has anyone watched Dark Season 3 on Netflix? It's absolutely lit. Recommend 100%. So I wanted to come on here today and talk about the butterfly effect that Game of Thrones has had on A Song of Ice and Fire, or vice versa. I wanted to do this video as a reference video for an individual character series that I'm doing for the book, so I don't have to explain the butterfly effect and the differences between A Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones in every video. It's something that George R.R. Martin talks about on many occasions.
As faithful as we've started out and as faithful as we intend to be, that changes will come into effect. What I call the butterfly effect. You step on a butterfly in the Pleistocene and it seems very minor, but suddenly you return to the future and all of human history has changed because of that butterfly. A small change can produce large changes later on.
Also, girl, the Dragon's Demands got access to an archive script for the bells from the Writers Guild, and come to find out, it was wildfire explosions and wildfire that was supposed to spread across King's Landing. Daenerys was supposed to head for the Red Keep and not just aimlessly burn thousands of people for 30 minutes. I'll link his video in the description box and you can check it out yourself. But the purpose of today's video is not to just be like mad at Dan and Dave, but to actually analyze, dissect, and try to understand the butterfly effect. The first thing we need to look at is the difference between Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire. And I don't mean like this can't happen because this, but just the difference as a whole. They are two totally different mediums. A Song of Ice and Fire is a huge unfinished fantasy book series with many different overall themes. It's loaded with folklore and myth and philosophical meaning. There are many different events unfolding across multiple continents. It's a huge story. Throughout the story, and we're talking about the books here, the others are the biggest threat. The author has conditioned us on many different occasions throughout the books that the Iron Throne and the war for it does not matter. It's the threat from the north that is the biggest threat, and the throne is just a distraction from this threat. Mance thinks he'll fight, the brave, sweet, stubborn man, like the White Walkers were no more than rangers. But what does he know? He can call himself king beyond the wall all he likes, but he's still just another old black crow who flew down from the Shadow Tower. He's never tasted winter. I was born up there, child, like my mother and her mother before her and her mother before her, born of the free folk. We remember. Osha stood, her chains rattling together. I tried to tell your lordling brother only yesterday when I saw him in the yard. My Lord Stark, I called to him, respectful as you please, but he looked through me, and that sweaty oaf Great John Umber shoves me out of his path. So be it. I'll wear my irons and hold my tongue. A man who won't listen can't hear. Tell me, Rob will listen to me. I know he will. Will he now? We'll see. You tell him this, my lord. You tell him he's bound on marching the wrong way. It's north he should be taking his swords. North, not south. You hear me? The story constantly echoes that winter is coming. The Night's Watch is asking for help. None of the kings of Westeros can put aside their quibbling to listen to them. Azor Ahai needs to be reborn. Where is Lightbringer? There's all this prophecy and magic is awakening and the wars are breaking out left and right. Crops are being destroyed. Armies are being wasted on pointless wars, and winter is coming and no one is ready for it. So the Iron Throne itself moves the plot. The Iron Throne is the reason for the pointless wars, the reason for people like Aegon and Jon Cunnington and Daenerys and Euron to all converge on Westeros. The Iron Throne is the reason for the political intrigue, but it's not as important as everything else that's going on, and the story that's being told is much bigger and magical than whose ass warms the Iron Throne. Now, in the TV series, it's quite different and it's quite literal. It's actually flipped. So one of the biggest things is the TV series isn't titled A Song of Ice and Fire. The TV series is titled Game of Thrones, and their overall story that the TV series series is telling is essentially about who will win the Game of Thrones, who sits on the Iron Throne in the end, and everything else that's going on is just plot points to get to that ending. So TV is a very different medium, and books translate to TV in a very different way. So in season 8, like before season 8 came out, I remember this shit like yesterday. HBO, the HBO official Game of Thrones Twitter account released the teaser and like this official hashtag for season 8, and it was hashtag for the throne. And people went off, myself included. We were like, who cares? Like, for the throne, like the throne and who sits on it is like the least interesting thing to me about A Song of Ice and Fire. But Dan and Dave need to fit this big huge story into their estimated number of episodes, which we're not even going to talk about that. So they tell the story of Game of Thrones and not A Song of Ice and Fire. They dilute the magical side of the story purposely. They admitted to this. They cut characters and essentially use the others or White Walkers as a mechanism to the outcome of who will win the Iron Throne. The Iron Throne is the most important object to this TV series. The Iron Throne, like their branding and everything is all built around the Iron Throne. Whereas in the books, we are constantly given the sense that it is the least important thing and not much more than a red herring to the actual threat. While yes, the Iron Throne is the cause of a lot of problems, and yes, the Iron Throne and who sits on it drives the political storyline, but the story being told is not the story of who wins the Iron Throne. So the books are different, but I do believe the broad strokes are there. So what are the broad strokes? So to me, the broadest stroke to me, as it translates to the Game of Thrones TV show, is who will sit on the Iron Throne. I have no doubt that will be Bran Stark. And I also have no doubt that Bran Stark will be king in Winterfell, as King's Landing will be completely consumed by wildfire. There will be no Greenseer king in King's Landing where there isn't a weirwood in sight. So the point is that George R.R. Martin is telling a much bigger story, and Dan and Dave have made changes to fit the story they are telling, and George has constantly warned his fans about the butterfly effect. There have been differences between the novels and the television show since the first episode of season 1, and for just as long I have been talking about the butterfly effect. Small changes lead to larger changes, lead to huge changes. HBO is more than 40 hours into the impossible and demanding task of adapting my lengthy, extremely, and complex, exceedingly, novels, with their layers of plots and subplots, their twists and contradictions and unreliable narrators, viewpoints, shifts, and ambiguities, and cast of characters in the hundreds. There has seldom been a TV series as faithful to the source material by and large. But the longer the show goes on, the bigger the butterflies become. And now we have reached the point where the beat of the butterfly wings is stirring up storms, like the one presently engulfing my email. Press and television have different strengths, different weaknesses, different requirements. David and Dan and Brian and HBO are trying to make the best television series that they can. And over here, I am trying to write the best novels that I can. And yes, more and more they differ. Two roads diverging in the dark of the woods, I suppose, but all of us are still intending that at the end we will arrive at the same place. In the meantime, we hope that readers and viewers both enjoyed the journey, or journeys, as the case may be. Sometimes butterflies grow into dragons. Okay. So the butterfly effect, and ending at the same place. Does that mean that every character in the TV show will have the same journey and ending as those in the books? No, not at all. That means that Bran will be king. The butterfly effect changes things. The butterfly effect makes some stories impossible to tell, and some book characters impossible to adapt accurately. The biggest one of all is Lady Stoneheart. They took Lady Stoneheart out because she was too magical. Can't have zombies in a story that has dragons. Not adapting Lady Stoneheart has definitely impacted Jon Snow's character, because George has said that Lady Stoneheart and Beric were foreshadowing for Jon. So Jon's not going to come back as 2.0. He's going to be a lot different. A mix between Beric and Lady Stoneheart. Lady Stoneheart being excluded definitely definitely changed Jamie and Brienne's story, which I'm actually terrified for Jamie right now in the books. He's not likely to make it out of Stoneheart's cave. The butterfly effect has affected Jamie's character and Sansa's too, like with the casual rapey shit. Do you guys remember when they had like Jamie rape Cersei over Joffrey's corpse? Well, yeah, that didn't happen in the books, and George said it's the butterfly effect at play. I think the butterfly effect that I have spoken of so often was at work here. In the novels, Jamie is not present at Joffrey's death, and indeed, Cersei has been fearful that he is dead himself, that she has lost both the son and the father, lover, brother, and then suddenly Jamie is there before her, maimed and changed, but Jamie nonetheless. Though the time and place is wildly inappropriate and Cersei is fearful of discovery, she is hungry for him as he is for her. The whole dynamic is different in the show, where Jamie has been back for weeks at the least, maybe longer, and he and Cersei have been in each other's company on numerous occasions, often quarreling. The setting is the same, but neither character is in the same place as in the books, which may be why Dan and David played the sept out differently. But that's just my surmise. We never discussed this scene to the best of my recollection. So the earlier comments about the butterfly effect and the longer the show goes on and the bigger the butterflies become was after Sansa was merged with Gene Pool. So yeah, I'm in no means excusing the rushed, nonsensical ending of the greatest television series in history. I'm just saying it's two different mediums, and they did great when they had the books to adapt, with the exception of A Dance with Dragons, in relation to the story they were trying to tell. So in my opinion, the Game of Thrones story is a more watered down, less philosophical story of plot twists and turns and shocking moments that all led to who will sit on the Iron Throne. So they compressed a lot, they composited a lot, they condensed a lot, and just moved the pieces around, and ultimately we ended with a very different story. D&D, they like to shock us. They have said that the main reason they wanted to adapt the show was because of the Red Wedding.
This was an event that was not only from the books, but it was one of the primary reasons that we wanted to make this show. We thought that this was getting to the Red Wedding for us was such a major milestone.
So they want to shock us, they want to horrify us. It was more about the shocking moments and who sits on the Iron Throne than telling us the story of A Song of Ice and Fire. And the butterfly effects affected the story, affected the outcome and the journey. And the only thing from season 8 that I accept as canon is that Bran Stark will be king at the end of this story. How we get there will be completely different. But what do you think? As always, thanks for watching. Thanks to everyone that supports me on Patreon. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please click that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and join the Sweet Summer family. Okay, my sweet summer children, have a good day.